This conference will now be recorded.
So the last for few of the people already we have gone through to PMG, but for few of the people we are in the data element only. For few of the people we are in still at the data element only. So we are going to start with the data element, and then we are going to see the domain. We are going to see the domain and the primary key versus initialization, and then the client dependent versus client independent tables, and then we are going to see how to add the data, and then what are the issues with the above approach we are going to see it, and the table maintenance generator. So just give me 1 second. So let's get started. So as I told you, the data element, it will show the properties of your field. So what are those properties? The data type, the length, as well as the descriptions. The length as well as the description. The main purpose of the data element is reusability. That means we can use the same data element in multiple table hyphen field levels. Multiple table hyphen field levels. So what are the apart from this, what things we can be able to provide in your data element? The first thing is the descriptions. So we can maintain short, medium, long descriptions and the headings. So based upon your data, automatically the description will be gets changed. If your data is small, then it will show you the short description. If the data is between some characters, it will show you the medium description. Like that, it will automatically change your description according to the data what you entered. But usually SAP will consider the medium description only. Medium description only. And I also told you we can maintain your search help. So search help is nothing but your F4 help, or I can say this as your input help. I didn't tell you about the search help till now. So after your views we have completed in the help view, while we are designing the help view, then we are going to start it with our search help. Then I will be going and show you how can we assign the search help into your data element level as well as the table hyphen field level. The next one is the parameter ID. So in order to call any transaction, so like your SE09 or SE38, so like that, if I want to call any transaction, so this parameter ID will plays an important role for calling of the transaction in order to pass the data into those fields. So if I open my SAP editor, okay. So if I open this, so let me open SE38 transaction code. So here we need to pass here input value. So in order to provide the value over here, this parameter ID will store whatever the value we want to pass into the transaction. So we will be setting that value with the help of your parameter ID. You will be getting to know more details when we discuss with our ALB. The next one is your change document history. It will store the data. It will store the changes in the data. So let's say, for example, if you are running any transaction, you are creating a sales order. So first of all, you have created with 5 quantity, and later on you want to change it to 10 quantity. So there is a change from 5 quantity to 10 quantity. If I want to know what the change that has been happened on that particular field, this change document will plays that important role. So as well as this will be used while transferring the data between one system to another system in case of your iDocs. In iDocs, we have a concept called as your change pointers. So this change pointers will uses this change document history thing. This change pointer will uses your change document history thing. The next one is the documentation. So what is the purpose of creating the data element? What values we can store in this data element? All this can be provided in your documentation. So which will nothing but F1 help. F1 help. F1 help, or we can say this as the technical help. Technical help. So technical help, or we can call it as your F1 help. Okay. Technical help. So this is what your documentation is. So I will be we'll be seeing you while we are discussing about your reporting. Okay. So now how to create your data element. Data element can be created in two ways. One is from your SE11 and the second one is from your table field level. So now the steps to create from SE11. What are the steps to create from SE11? So in order to create the data from SE11, so go to the T code SE11, and select the radio button data type, and then provide the data element. I'll be calling it as shortcut DE. Provide the data element name as per the naming standards. Naming standard. So we will be starting with the ZDE followed by your description. So why we are going to use this? Because we have to use this at multiple tables, which belongs to different application areas also. So that's the reason we will be never passing any application area or any rise of ID in case of your data elements. Okay. So and click on create. So SAP will open a pop-up window, in that select the radio button, this is a data element and click on continue. Click on continue. So click on continue. So now we need to provide the following details. We need to provide the following details. So it will open a screen where we need to provide your following details. The first one is the description of your data element. The description of the data element. Then we need to provide the data type. Provide the data type and the length. Okay, provide the data type and the length, and then provide the field label. The field label, that means the field description. Label, that means the field description. So such as here short, medium, long, and heading. Long and heading. So these are the mandatory things. So for sure we need to pass these values. Apart from this, you can pass your search help, your parameter ID, and your change document history. The change document history. So these will be in your further characteristics. Tab. Okay. change document history and further characteristics tab. Once you provide this, click on save and activate. Click on save and activate by providing the package and the TR. Providing the package and your TR. So I already told you, whenever you want to use any object, the object must be active status. Then only you can be able to use at any place. So let's go ahead and see that one. So if I go to /n SA11, so now see data type, I'm going to create ZDE underscore Z27 underscore EMPIE. So I'm just going to differ with J27. So now just click on create. So you have to select your data element and click on continue. I don't have the developer access. Let me open. So SE11. So now I'm going with the data type. I'm going with the employee ID. I'll just creating the data element. So it will open your screen. So now here I'm going to say this as employee ID. And now you need to select your predefined type. And then you have to provide it as either character and 10. So now you need to provide your field labels. So now I'm just going to take this as the short text, the medium text, the long text, as well as your heading. So just click on enter, it will be show you this one. So remember this, the length of your short text must always be 10 characters. It should not increase your 10 characters. The medium will always be your 20 characters and the long will always be your 40 characters. And heading will also be your 40 characters. So the maximum heading you can provide is 40 characters. The maximum field column heading you can provide is your 40 characters. Okay, if you are providing more than that in your program also you can provide that. If you are providing more than that, it will go for a runtime error. I'll be showing you when we start with our programming. Okay, so remember this, the maximum length must be 40 characters, but when you are defining it as short description, it must be 10. If it is a medium, 20, and if it is a long, it is a 40 characters. Heading by default, whatever the length you have provided, that will be taking, but the maximum is also here, it is 40 characters only. Okay, so then I told you here you can provide your search help. You can provide your parameter ID as well as your change document. So these, as of now, I don't have it, so I'm not going to provide it. So if you have, so that's why I told you these are your optional parameters. And then here you can maintain your documentation. So once you provide this, just save and activate, or you can directly do your activate also. So now I'm just going to provide my package as well as my. So see here in the object, which object you are going to activate. So DTEL is nothing but data element. So DOMA is nothing but your domain. TABL is nothing but your table. So now I'm going to activate this my data element. So this is how you have to create. So now you can see here the change, the status will change to active. Previously it will be new and it will be changed to active. Now I can use this data element in my table field. Now let me go back and click on my database table and open my database table JTZ27. So now I'll just click on change. So here I'll pass my data element. So now when I say click on enter, see automatically the character, the length and description will be because this is in active status. This is active status. So that's the reason it will show you this one. So if I just delete this one and if I say enter, automatically it has removed, and let me paste it one more time. So see, automatically it has came out. So this is how you have to create your data element from your SE11. So now the next thing is how to create the data element from your table hyphen field level. How to create your data element from your table hyphen field. So now, so open the table in SE11 change mode. In SE11 change mode, and then provide the table field, and the data element, and click on enter. Click on enter. If the data element is not available, then double click on the data element. It will navigate to the data element screen. Automatically SAP will directly navigate to your data element screen. So once it has been navigate to your data element screen, so we need to provide this following details, and then we need to activate. We need to provide your following details and then activate. So that's it, no more changes. So the creation is the same, but how you are navigating is going to be different. So whether you are going to navigate from your SE11 route or whether you are going to navigate from your table hyphen field, both are the same. Now let's go ahead and see this. Now, what is my second field? I'm going to create the second field as my employee first name. So now I'm going to take this as ZDE Z27 EMPF name, employee first name. Now I just click on enter. See here, it is not active or it might not be created. So just double click. So it will ask you to do a save on your database table as you have done some changes. Yes, and yes. See here, the data element is not active. Would you like to create it? And say yes. So it has been navigated. So I'm going to take this as employee first name. So now in my predefined type, I'm going to take this as character 40. And now in my field label, I'm going to take this as, I'll just copy this one. I'll be pasting it over here. Employee first name. And now I'll just activate this one. So that's it. Now when I come back, see here, automatically those details has been filled up. So this is what is all about your data elements. Now the next one is your domain. So what is a domain? So domain What is a domain? So domain. So in SAP, so domain will store the semantic properties of the field. So such as again the data type and your length. So then what is the main difference between your data element and domain? Why you are going to create your domain? So this is also one of your interview question. So what is the main purpose of creating of your domain? So this mostly freshers to 2 years of experience, they can ask you. Post that you might not be able to even get this question also. The main purpose of creating the domain is main purpose of creating that domain is, the first thing is SAP will store the data in uppercase and the positive values only. Now for example, let me open my Excel sheet. So now if I say this as minus 1 2 3 4, it will store the value as 1 2 3 4 only by default. And if I go here as Ravi, so it will store this as Ravi only in the capital letters. But now if I want to store however I am going to update, I want to store in the same format. If I want to store in the same format how I am updating, then we need to create your domain. So that's why I told you it will store you the semantic properties. Okay, semantic properties. So SAP will store the data by default. By default. By default. If I want to store the data in lowercase and in negative values, then we need to create a domain. Create the domain. This is the main functionality why we are going to create a domain. So people will say that it will just store the properties, but what type of a properties it will store will exactly determined by your domain. So, but these things you can't able to achieve it from your data element. These things you can't able to achieve. So that's the reason whenever we are creating the table, we will always suggest you to create the data element, and we will always suggest you to create your domain. So apart from this, in domain, we have something called as the fixed values. We have something called as the fixed values. So usually it is mainly used to do the validation of the data. So validation of the data, what user is entering. So for example, I have already given you an example like your gender. So male, female, and trans. So if other than any other thing, if user is going to enter, we have to throw them in and say that the gender is not belongs, or this value is not maintained. This value is an invalid value. So like that. So the maximum fixed values we can maintain or 20. I'm just going with 20. So if the fixed values are greater than 20, then we need to create a value table. We need to create a value table. So that means we will be create or we will create, sorry, we need to create a SEP separate table, and we will assign the table as the value table in the domain. The value table in the domain. So now when you are validating, when you are entering the data, SAP will check if the data is there in that value table or not. If the value table is there, it will check on the value table. If the fixed values is there, it will check on the fixed values. Okay. So can I maintain both? Yes, you can maintain both, but we won't do it. Either we will be maintaining the fixed values or we will be maintaining your value table. So yes, SAP is not supposing to maintain both. So you can maintain it, but by default, either this or this we will be doing. Okay, so clear with this? So this is what. And the next one is your conversion routine. Conversion routine. So this will convert the value from external to internal, external to internal, and internal to external, external to internal, and internal to external. So how it is? So let's say, for example, you have taken this as the num 10, num 10. So and you have passed a value as 1. So in SAP, how it will show 0000000001. So 9 zeros and 1 it will store. It will store 9 zeros and 1s. Okay, that's how it will store your. So that is what. So when it is changing, when you are seeing, it will show you as 1. But when you are at the database level, it will store you as 9 zeros and 1. How that is going to be happen? With the help of this conversion routine. With the help of this conversion routine. By default, we will always use a conversion routine called as alpha. Called as alpha. So this is the conversion routine we will be using. So we'll be using alpha. So for every conversion routine, SAP will provide 4 function modules. 4 function module. What is this function module? So see, the data element is used for reusability. That means you can use it at multiple places. So in the same way, if the piece of ABAP code, if a piece of ABAP code has to be used at multiple places, then we will be putting that in a function module. Then we will be placing that code in a function module. There are other ways also for keeping your code in different ways. One is your class hyphen methods, one is your function modules, one is your subroutines. Like that, you will be having so many different things. But this is also one of the option. Each one having its own advantages as well as its own disadvantages too. So we will be teaching that when we go ahead with the coding. So after your interactive reporting, then we will be going to start it with your subroutine pools as well as your function modules. Then you can understand that the same piece of logic has to be used at multiple places. Then we will be keeping that logic at one place. So that's called as your function module. So now so SAP will create 4 functions. What are those function modules? Conversion, exit, alpha in, next input. Sorry, conversion exit alpha input, and then conversion exit alpha output, and then conversion exit alpha in range underscore I, and then conversion exit underscore alpha range O. So these two are used for your single values. If I want to convert a single value, then this will be used. So this is for internal and this is for your external. And if I have multiple values to be gets converted, then we will be using your ranges. Then we will be using your ranges. So this is all about your domain. Okay, so the main purpose is to store either in your negative values as well as your lowercase letters. So that is not possible. Along with that, if I want to provide any fixed values or if I want to do any data validations, so the data validations will only be happen through your domain only. So it can't able to do it from your data element. So see, first one is we have seen about your predefined types. So in your predefined type, you can just pass your data type and your length. So nothing much. So here you can provide your descriptions as well as you can provide your change document history and everything. So these things you can't able to do it in your predefined type. So that's the reason for every table field we need to create your data element. So now and again and my user is asking to store in the negative values or the lowercase letters. So or I want the data to be gets validated. So in those cases we have to create a domain. So every table field has to be linked to a data element. Every data element has to be linked to your domain, into your domain. So this is the main thing. Okay. Now, steps to create your domain. Steps. So we can create the domain in two ways. Just give me 1 second. I just need to put a delay by 30 minutes for the next batch. Okay. So we can create the domain in the same way. How can you create your data element? The domain can also be created in two ways. The first way is from your SE11 and the second way is from your data element. Data element. Now we will go ahead and see how can we create the domain, how to create the domain how to create the domain from SE11. How to create the domain from SE11. So the steps, what are the steps? The steps are how to create the domain. So go to the T code, SE11, select the radio button domain, radio button domain, and then provide the name of the domain as per the naming standards. As per the naming standards. So the naming standards will start it with ZDO. CDE is for your data element or CDO is for your domain followed by your description and click on create. Click on create. So SAP will open a window, will open the domain window where we need to provide the following details. Following details. Just give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, sorry for this guys. So SAP will open the domain window and we need to provide the following details. So what are those details? The first one is, so firstly I will be telling you the mandatory details and then we will be seeing about your optional details. The first one is your description. The description of the domain. The description of your domain. So what are the description, and then we need to provide the data type and length. So this is by default. So these are the two values by default will be passing. And then my optional fields are your conversion routine, either the lowercase slash negative values and your fixed value slash your value table. Fixed values slash your value table. Once you provide these details, so click on save and activate. Click on save and activate by providing the TR and the package. By providing your TR and package. So this is all about your domain. So let's go ahead and see how can we create your domain. So now I'll just open /OSD. And now here we are going to see your domain. So now I'm going to create the domain for ZDO underscore Z27 underscore your employee ID. For my employee ID, I'm going to create my domain. So click on create and I'm going to say this as your employee ID. And now here I'm going to take this as character and then I'm going to take this as 10. So now see here, based upon your data type, this sign and lowercase will differ. So if I say it has num-c, now see here, no sign and no lowercase because num-c is the positive values, positive numbers. So from 0 to infinity. So for that we don't require a negative and we don't require a lowercase. Now if I take this as decimal, now see here, the sign will come up. So or if I take this as integer, the sign will come up. So based upon your data type, automatically system will knows which one it has to enable. Which one it has to enable. Now I'm going to take this as character. Now see here the lowercase. Now if you have this, you have to. If you have conversion routine, I'm going to provide alpha, my conversion routine. Alpha, my conversion routine. Now in my value range, if you have any fixed values, you will be providing those fixed values. If the fixed values are greater than 20, then we have to create a separate table with the same steps what we are doing it. And we have to assign that as a value table. We have to assign that as a value table. So this is how you need to create your domain. And now activate this. Now see here DOMA. So is nothing but your domain. So now that's it. Now I will copy this domain. Let me go to my database table, click on change. I'm just already changing that one. So now go to your employee ID and now in the domain provide your domain name. That's it. Now the properties will be assigned. The same, all the properties will be gets assigned. Now see here it is in inactive status. Inactive status. The new details has not been gets uploaded. Now when I activate this, it will just get added those. So every change, whatever the changes you are doing, at least when you press an enter over here or when I give a space bar, see it will be in active status. Even when you give just a space bar, it will just change your status. So every time you have to activate this. Every time you have to activate this. Now let me go back and see how to create the domain. How to create the domain from the data element level. How to create the domain from the data element. How to create your domain from your data element. So now open the data element. Open the data element in FE11 change mode or from table hyphen field level. Table hyphen field level and provide the domain name as per the naming standard. As per the naming standards. So as you know it, and click on enter. Click on enter. So once you click on enter, if domain is not available, then double click on the domain. Double click on your domain. Double click on the domain. SAP will navigate to the domain window. Domain window. SAP will navigate to your domain window, and then you have to provide your following details. So what are those details? The same thing. So these are the details which you need to provide it, and that's it. So this is how you will be creating your domain. Okay, so click on save and activate by providing your TR. Now let's go ahead and see that one. So now I'm going to my domain, and in the domain I'm going to take this as ZDO Z27, and I'm going to take this as name. It's the name of my employee. So the same characteristics I can able to use it. Same characteristics I can able to use it. See, for your employee first name, employee last name, student first name, and student last name. I can able to use the same characteristics. Okay, so that's the reason I'm just going to give this as your name. That's it. Now double click on this. It will ask you your S. So now I'm going to take this as your name. I'm going to take this as your character 40. So if you have anything, you can just provide your lowercase as well as your value range. And now activate your domain. And you can also activate directly your data element. Multiple objects can also be gets activated in one single shot. One single shot. So now I'm just activating multiple objects. Now this is in active status and this is in active status. So that is how. Now the next thing is, so this time I'll be a little bit faster. Employee last name. Now I'm going to take this as JDE J27 underscore employee L name. Last name. So now I'm going to double click on this. Yes, yes. I'll say this as employee last name. And now I'm going to give the same domain. See now domain has been used at multiple data. Okay, now in my field label, I'm going to take this as employee last name, employee last name, employee last name, employee last name, and activate this one. That's it. Now go back, and now I'm going to create the next one is for the employee gender. So now I'm going to create ZDE J27 underscore gender or employee gender. Now just double click on this, click on yes, application. So this is fine. Yes, I'm going to take this as employee gender. And now in my predefined type, in my domain, I'm going to take this as ZDE underscore J27 underscore gender. So I can use the same gender in my employee table as well as in my student agenda also I need it. My student agenda. So I'm going to create the same domain and I'll be using at my multiple data elements. Now I'm going to do this. So I'm just copying this. Now I'm going to my data type. I just click on this. So now I'll just say enter and I'll be taking this as gender and I'm going to take this as character 1. So now for this I'm going to have my value M for male and then F for female and then T for trans. Trans. So that's it. Now I'm going to activate both my data element as well as my domain. So this is what. Now these three values is only possible for that particular field. So that's called as the data validation. Now once your employee gender is completed, what is the next one? I'll be taking this as employee email ID. Employee email ID. So I'm going to use the existing one, existing employee email ID. And before that, I want to add one more thing called as your employee designation. Employee designation. I'm using the existing ones as you already know how to create your data element and your domain. And next, employee mobile number. So now I'm just going to say my employee mobile. So now whatever the fields I have, I just added all those fields to my database table. Now my entire columns has been created. Now it's time for me to save or to activate your table. When you are trying to activate your table, it will show you an error called as you specify a primary key. Specify a primary key. See here, the first error you will be seeing is called as your primary key. Now, what is meant by this primary key? So now we are going to see the next thing called as your primary key. Primary key. So what is meant by this primary key? So it's an unique identifier. So that means the value in this field, the value in this field will never gets repeated. Okay, repeated. The value in this field will never gets repeated. So this is called as your primary key. So example, I can say this as your Aadhaar card number. Aadhaar card. So Aadhaar card number will be gets repeated. The same Aadhaar card or driving license or passport number or your student ID number or your employee ID number. Employee ID number. So like this. So this is your this is called as your primary key. So how can I identify the unique data will be told by your primary key. The length of the primary key, the length of the primary key should not exceed in SAP. This is in SAP should not exceed 250 characters and maximum number of fields. The maximum number of fields we can make make it as 16. The maximum number of primary keys we can provide it as 16. So the maximum or 16 or it must be 250 characters. So that means it will check 250C, 250 combinations. The permutations and combinations, right? So 250C, 250 combinations, 250 into 249 into 248 into 247 into till 1. Whatever the value of the outcome it is going to get, those many number of combination of data we can maintain in that particular field. Those many number of combination of data we can maintain in those things. So that's called as a primary key. Now, if I say, see, you have to select. So now, when you are creating the table, we also need to know what is the what is the what is what is the field, what are the fields that contains, what are the fields that contains unique data. data. So this also you need to know. So I told you. So what type of a table you are going to create, how frequently the data is going to be changed, and how much data that is going to be stored in your table. And along with this, what are your unique fields or what are your primary key fields? So these are the four things you need to know when you are creating your database table. So going forward, maybe down the line of your experience, 5 to 6 years, you will be knowing what will be your primary key and everything. So, but at the initial stages of your while you are growing, so you have to check with your functionals. So what will be the unique key combination? So that unique key combination you have to set. Now here I'm going to set up it as employee first name and employee last name and employee ID. Now the next thing is your initialization. So this is the one. Initialization or initial values. Initial values. So what are these initial values? Initial values is nothing but not null. Not null. So that means for sure we need to pass the values in this field. For this, we need to pass the values in this field. So we need to pass the values in this field. By default, SAP will set this initial values for all the key fields, for all your primary key fields. By default, SAP will set this automatic. I'm going here, I'm not going to set this. Now, my key fields are also provided. Now, let's go ahead and activate. You will be getting this. The application table should be a client specific. So that is what the next thing, the client dependent tables versus your client independent tables. So that's an information message. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just clicking on enter. Now there are no errors. Warnings we can ignore. I'll tell you what is that warning also. Enhancement category is missing. So if I go here, see here, enhancement category of the table is missing. I'll be telling you at a later point of time after your TMG is completed. After your TMG is completed, then I'm going to tell you what is this one. Okay, so now my table got activated. See here, the table has been changed to active. So this is what you need to create your table. Now, the next thing is we have to see what is this client dependent versus your client independent tables. Now, let me write down this. So before we go ahead with this, so I'm going to show you one more time. Application table must be a client specific table. As I told you, when we are dealing with our tables in the delivery class, I told you the application table data will be added by your users and it will never get transported. So now in real time, how can we know? So in real time, so you for every system, we will have a client. For every system, we will have a client number associated to it. Client number associated to it. Now, the data will be differ in this system, application table. How can I know? How can I differentiate the data between the data is going to be different? So for that reason, we need to add a field called as the first field called as your mandate. So which will be always be a key, and your data element will always be your mandate. So see here, this will tell us your client, the client number, So here my client number is 810. You can see here your 810. So see that. So now, so the first field is your 810, and then you will be adding your data. So now these four fields will act like as my key fields. So this will be my unique combination. That means 40 plus 40, 80, 80 plus 10, 90, 93, 90, 93C, 93 combinations you can maintain your data. 93, 93, 93C, 93 combinations you can maintain your data. So this is what. Now, let me write down your differences between your client dependent and a client independent. Then I'll be stopping for your day. So the client dependent tables and client independent tables. So client dependent, the data will belongs to only to that particular client. The data will belongs to only for to that particular client. Now, whereas over here, the data will be the same. The data will be the same across all the clients. All your application tables must be the client dependent tables. All the application tables must be the client dependent tables. All the so whereas whereas all the customizing tables must be client independent. Client independent. Independent. So here the mandate field is mandatory. The field mandate is compulsory or mandatory. The mandate field is here. The mandate field is optional. So you can provide or you can't able to provide. So this is all about your client dependent as well as your client independent tables. So this is all about your client dependent. Now, how to add the data into this table? To add the data, to add the data, we need to click on utilities, and then click on table entries, and click on create entries. Click on create entries. So now SAP will open an application where we can where we can maintain the data, where we can maintain your data. So this is what your utilities is. So this is how we need to maintain your entry. Okay, so this is how you need to maintain your entries. So now how to add this and what are the issues with this, and then we are going to see with your table maintenance generator that we are going to check in your tomorrow's session. So that's the end of today's session. Before I signing off for today's session, any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, I'll be considering it as no questions, and we'll meet you tomorrow 8 o'clock sharp, and we'll continue our session. Maybe if 5 minutes delay, as I need to connect to my system to monitor and everything, so it might get delayed by 5 minutes, not more than that. So if it is delayed by more than that time, you will be getting a message from my end. Okay, yeah, that's all. So this from here onwards, the recordings will be gets uploaded in SAP June 27th batch. So the June 27th batch is there, right? In that, the complete recordings will be gets uploaded along with the running notes. The same running notes will be gets uploaded. So I need to parallelly upload this. Once I got my personal laptop, everything will be get synced automatically. So running notes will be get synced automatically. Once your class gets completed, the running notes will be get synced. But right now I have to manually uploading it. So I'm facing some issues with my personal laptop. So once that will get resolved, so I'll be using my personal laptop for my trainings. So everything will be gets uploaded. So all your interview questions I have to upload, I'll be uploading it, as well as some of the other documents which I'm not going to tell you, which will be used in your career. So that also I'm going to upload. Mostly we won't be using that, but there are some companies where they are going to use that. So I have provided you with the screenshots of that, so you can go through that and you can watch that. But right now, if you are doing it, you can't able to understand. Once completion of your course, then you can able to understand that. Okay, clear with that? So that's the end of today's session. So we'll meet you tomorrow again and we'll continue our session. Thank you all.
Thank you.